Welcome. I would like to ask Mama Olabisi for permission to proceed. Thank you. Habaragani.
Ujima.
Habaragani.
Ujima.
Habaragani.
Ujima.
Welcome everyone to the third day of Dayton Africana Elders Kwanzaa. We are so welcome to be a part of this today. I am Furaha Henry Jones.
I'm Umvikeli G. Scott Jones.
And our daughter is Aurora Henry Jones back there. We are so welcome, so happy to be here. Ujima means collective work and responsibility. And it's an opportunity for us to recognize our mutuality and the importance of working together, looking at problems together and how to solve them together, be it in the family, be it in an institution, be it in the community, the nation, and globally. So that's what we'll be doing today, recognizing Ujima and collective work and responsibility. Before we go on with the rest of our presentation, Umvikeli, I'd like you to do the libation.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm actually going to be reading. We just had a little water issue.
There's water right there.
So we're actually,
There's water there.
Yeah, I got it. I'm actually going to be reading some notes to make sure I cover everything that I wanted to in libation today. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to refill this cup that just spilled behind us. Sorry. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to say some words, and then we're going to pour this liquid, which is water in this case, into this plant. Reality is it's only going to take a little bit of water before it saturates it. So sometimes I may not actually pour, but I'll insinuate pouring. So it seems that everyone pours libation a little differently, but we all do the most important element the same. We pour a liquid, which is the substance of life, creation, destruction, and rebirth. And we speak out the names of important ancestors, and we speak about important ancestors. We're led by a member of the community. Today, that'll be me. And we respond either by saying Ashe, which is coming from Yoruba traditions, Soy, which is coming from Kipsiki traditions, Yebo, which is Zulu, which is one of the Bantu tribes, or we may even say Amen, which is actually extending from ancient Kemet or Egypt. And we may say other things, but they all basically signify that we agree, that we also acknowledge the life force. Ashe is also signifying that we're all unified. We're all agreeing and aligning ourselves with one common goal, or with the life force, which gives us all life and sustains us. So for some people, pouring libation is a form of worship. For others, it may not be. It is for some folks, it's actually representative of bringing ancestors, asking ancestors to come with us into this space. For others, it's not. It's more of a symbolic aligning oneself or remembering the ancestors and creating a space for the remembrance in the mind. So it may be spiritual, it may not be spiritual. It depends on what you believe, and it all works together either way. So we're going to start by pouring libation for the creative power of the universe, the God or gods of our understanding, the evolutionary force of nature from which we are born, and that we will all one day return to. And so I'll say Ashe, and then on your end, please respond with Ashe. Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe.
We pour libation for the first peoples of the world who studied nature, who studied the rhinoceros and the elephants and the lions and all other animals in Africa in order to understand what foods were safe to eat, what plants to eat for medicine when they were sick, what plants were unsafe and what to avoid, and how to shelter themselves from the inclemency of the weather and of nature. We say Ashe.
Ashe. Okay.
We pour libation to those first Africans who mixed mud and straw into bricks, who shaped clay into containers to store food and water, who discovered fermentation and the preservation of foods. We say Ashe.
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 We pour libation for the first Africans who worked with iron and gold and silver to create tools, to create jewelry and ornamentation. And we say Ashe.
Ashe. Ashe.
We pour libation for those who first hewn stones from quarries, who gathered stones and chopped them and cut them and created architecture and complex buildings and built the Great Pyramids. We say Ashe.
Ashe. Ashe. Ashe.
We pour libation for the first Africans who sang, who created instruments from conch shells, wood, iron, and more, who created the first trumpets, which is what the conch shells were, and created songs to tell stories. We say Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe. Ashe.
We pour libation for the first Africans who sketched, who created sculptures and works of art to express their experiences. Those who first acknowledged the infinite reaches of the universe and developed mythology and religion. We say Ashe.
Ashe.
We pour libation for those who sailed the oceans to the continents known today as North and South America long before Europeans did so, and who shared culture and agriculture with the indigenous peoples of this land. We say Ashe.
Ashe.
We pour libation for the
Ashe.
Africans. We pour libation for the Africans who were stolen from their homes and transported across the ocean during the Middle Passage and were forced to work as slaves. Those who were captured because of their skills as farmers, agriculturalists, as doctors, as ironsmiths, those who worked in textile and other crafts and other professions. To those who lost their homelands against their will, we say Ashe.
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 We pour libation for the ancestors who struggled on the bottom of cargo ships, who lived in feces and waste, who sang songs to remain sane. We pour for those who died from disease, from grief, suicide, etc., during the months-long journey from Africa to these lands. We say Ashe.
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 We pour libation for those from different cultures, who spoke different languages and had different traditions, those who created new cultures here on North and South America, new cultures from the cultures that they had and from their new experiences that they were forced to work together. We say Ashe.
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 We pour libation for the musicians.
Ashe.
We pour libation for the visual artists. We pour for the writers, for the storytellers, the historians, and others who expressed love, grief, religion, anger, pain, joy, compassion, hope, and so many more emotions that they were feeling and that we feel today. We say Ashe.
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 Now what we will do is we will call out specific names who have made contributions to our society and to our society and to the world. Please say the names of ancestors from where you are as well. So actually what I want to do in this libation, one of the things that we don't often do is say the names, like to have a specific focus on the names of musicians and visual artists. We say the names of others, which are, there's so many important people. So I'd like to take a moment to specifically focus on some of the musicians, myself being a musician, and to acknowledge some of them who, without them, we wouldn't have what we have today here in the United States or other places. So I actually want to start with Bob Marley and say Ashe.
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 And if others want to say names, people on the call or at home, we will say Ashe as well.
Baba Tunde.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Whitney Houston, Ashe.
Ashe.
Michael Jackson, Ashe.
Kwame Nkrumah.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Hugh Masekela.
Ashe.
John Coltrane.
Miriam Makeba.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Celia Cruz.
Ashe.
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 Nelson Mandela.
James Baldwin.
Ella Fitzgerald.
Ashe.
Ashe.
McCoy
Nina
Tyler.
Simone. Ashe. Billie Holiday.
Ashe.
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 And then what we'll do now is we'll turn our attention to
Ashe.
family members. So we can acknowledge our individual relatives and family members who have helped pave the way for us to be here today. We'll start with Evan Henry.
Ted Curtis. Ashe.
Betty Armstrong.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Leslie Armstrong.
Bruce Daly. Ashe.
Milton Henry.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Frank Crow.
Russell Houston. Ashe.
Ruby Johnson.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Casey Goodson Jr.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Gregory Armstrong.
Ashe.
Llewellyn Dyer.
Ashe.
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 And now what we'll do is we'll turn our attention now to those to basically pouring libation or pouring, I've heard it recently said, pouring affirmation to those of us who are living today, as well as those of us who are not yet born, those of us who will be here in the future. Because the future, those of us, those who are not born yet are just as important to us as we are to those who have come and already gone on. So we say to all those who are living and not yet born, we will pour libation and say Ashe.
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 And then we will end by saying that we all agree.
Ashe.
So I'll say if we all agree, and you all say, please, we agree. We all agree?
We agree.
Thank you. Ashe.
Ashe-o.
Ashe.
So while our daughter is behind us lighting the candles, we're on the third day. She will light the first candle, which represents Umoja, and then a second candle that represents Kujichangulia, and the third candle for today is Ujima, collective work and responsibility. Ujima requires that we consider our successes and our obstacles in overcoming things that impede us in our movement toward being liberated people. And with that in mind, we want to focus today in thinking about the special circumstance that we're in right now, which is the COVID-19 pandemic. We'll first have a presenter, Shon Yamini, who will talk about a global perspective of COVID-19, and then we'll be followed by a panel of very diverse panel of folks who represent the arts and education and health, athletics, and more. So that's how the rest of this program will proceed. And as we move forward, we want to think about what are the things that we need as a community, what do we need as individuals in order to effectively move together, and to feel responsible for each other's lives and success and the movement forward of the whole community. With that in mind, I'd like to introduce to you Deshawna Yamini. Deshawna, and of course, I have my notes here, and Deshawna, I'm gonna wing it because you were very efficient in getting your bio to me. But of course, I have this piece of paper in front of me, and I'm nervous. But that's okay, right?
That's Perfectly fine.
What I do know about Deshawn and Yamini, number one, she's a coordinator of the African American Male Initiative at Sinclair Community College. That is where I see her shine. She's like a mother to a load of young men, and we get to see them succeed and thrive. And it has a lot to do with how she has her hands in their lives. I know that she is incredibly meticulous thinker and puller together of ideas. I've seen that work as she was working on her African American Studies certificate, which, by the way, she did that certificate in a cohort of young men. So she was doing it for herself, but she was also doing it for them and ushering them through. So I'm really appreciative to you for those things. But in particular, I'm appreciative to Deshawn and Yamini because she has taken on the planning of Sinclair's pre-Kwanzaa, which typically happens annually and has happened for a number of decades. And she has done such a wonderful job with that. It's an important part of what we do at Sinclair and what we do in the community. So Deshauna, and last but not least, she is gaining expertise in holistic health. So I'll let her talk to you about those things. And with that being said, I'm going to pass it to you so you can do your presentation on global perspective of COVID-19.
Thank you so much, sister. Habari gani, everyone. So I'm going to bring up, I have some visual aids here, so I'm going to make sure we have those. Oops. So today we celebrate the principle of Ujima, collective work and responsibility, to build and maintain our community together and make our brothers and sisters' problems our problems and to solve them together. The COVID-19 pandemic has been one of the most challenging health crises to face our community in our lifetime. Pandemics and other health emergencies have been happening in the world since the beginning of humanity. In recorded history, we know that there's been the Black Death, smallpox, yellow fever. We know that in 1918, there was a flu pandemic similar to what we're experiencing now with COVID-19. It has been over 100 years since the world has seen anything like this. There's no one alive today to tell us what they did to survive, but we are all here because they did. Since March, many of us have played a guessing game regarding when we could return to work or to school, go to a movie, gather with friends and family, or eat in a restaurant without fear of contracting the virus. I never thought that we as Americans would be where we are right now, yet here we are. And it's sad to talk about these statistics, as many of us have lost someone we know or love to COVID-19. While we wait for herd immunity or medical breakthroughs, other places worldwide are getting over COVID-19 without a vaccine and by merely being responsible and working together collectively. The principle of Ujima. The best response to COVID is Taiwan, an island nation of about 24 million people, and is roughly the size and close to population to the state of Florida. Taiwan has only recorded 675 cases of COVID-19 as of December 1st, and has had 7 deaths. By comparison, the state of Florida has had 1.25 million infections and nearly 21,000 deaths. Taiwan was affected by a SARS outbreak in 2003, which taught them valuable lessons in contact tracing and allowed them to strengthen their response to the next pandemic. They quickly shut down their borders and began manufacturing and stockpiling masks. If the citizen tested positive, they were assigned a hotel room to quarantine and an epidemic prevention taxi. The driver was assigned directly to that person, and the driver was not allowed to take any other customers. If anyone was caught not adhering to the mask wearing and social distancing, they received a fine. And as a result, Taiwan went 200 days without a positive COVID test, which allowed them to lift restrictions and move freely about their country. New Zealand's Minister of Health issued an infectious and notifiable diseases order as early as January 30th, and travel restrictions were in place by February. New Zealand enacted a nationwide lockdown on March 26. Instead of trying to flatten the curve, they took a disease elimination approach, asking workers in the city of Auckland to stay home after just one student became infected with the virus. Vietnam has a population of 97 million and quickly shut down its borders to China, enacted travel restrictions, and increased health checks at its borders. To quote Dr. Todd Pollack, who works with Harvard's Partnership for Health Advancement in Hanoi, Vietnam, when you're dealing with these kinds of novel, potentially dangerous pathogens, it's better to overreact. And now to Mother Africa, where many believe COVID would wreak havoc and decimate the continent. Many countries in Africa were able to get ahead of the virus, mainly due to lessons they learned from the Ebola outbreak of 2014. As early as February 4th, the Africa CDC established the Africa Task Force for Novel Coronavirus. The same month, all 55 ministers of health in Africa convened to discuss the pandemic and agree on a strategy they could implement continent-wide. The virus has killed fewer people in Africa than in Europe and the Americas. However, they are still seeing an increase in infections, but they're still doing a much better job of responding. So where do we go from here? Many of us have been doing what we need to eradicate this virus, including avoiding social gatherings, mask wearing, and physical distancing. But there are some among us who refuse. Many have argued that the virus is no big deal, yet we see our healthcare professionals, some of whom we know personally, being pushed to exhaustion and illness themselves. We also see the snowball effect of how the virus has affected everything in our lives. COVID-19 has proven to be so unpredictable. Why would any of us be willing to take a chance with our health and the health of those around us? If we know that strategies have worked elsewhere, no matter how stressful or cumbersome they may be, why are some unwilling to do what's necessary to stay safe? I envy the nations I mentioned earlier, who chose experience, science, and a sense of community over conspiracy theories, denial, and individualism. If this pandemic has taught us anything, we should do whatever we can to take care of ourselves and those around us. And while there's been a lot of talk about the new vaccines, few people are talking about what we can do to keep ourselves healthy during these times. Early in the pandemic, I started sharing what I knew and gave a few talks about self-care virtually, hoping that everyone I shared information with would share it with someone else. I understand that not everyone can do the things on this list, but if you do the ones you can, it will help in the long term. The research on vitamins, especially the research on vitamin C, D, and zinc, have been very promising. Please note that this is for informational purposes, and your health choices are between you and your healthcare providers. There is research that is proving that those with low levels of vitamin D in their system have a greater risk of hospitalization and death due to COVID. Getting enough vitamin D could be one of the most simple and affordable ways to keep us healthy. The issue is that not many of us are aware that we're deficient in vitamin D. Did one of your elders give you cod liver oil when you were a kid? Well, as usual, our elders were onto something. Cod liver oil contains over 2,000 international units, or over 50 micrograms per tablespoon of vitamin D. So when you the elderly could have low levels because we all will lose the ability to generate vitamin D from the sunlight as we age. People with dark skin absorb less sunlight. And who has COVID affected the most? The elderly and people of African descent. You can have your vitamin D levels checked with a blood test. You can ask your doctor for the test, or you can order it for yourself. Personally, I ordered mine from CompuNet and I paid $60 for it. And when I checked the website over the weekend, that price was still appearing there. So as we continue to be affected by this pandemic, let us continue to reflect on the Nguzo Saba, the 7 principles to keep us or to help us through it. We need umoja or unity to keep ourselves and our communities healthy. We need kujichagulia or self-determination to eradicate COVID together. We will use Ujima, collective work and responsibility, to hold each other accountable. We will use Ujama or cooperative economics at the shops and stores in our communities that sell what we need to keep us healthy and keep our businesses running. We will need Nia or purpose to restore our health as a community. We will use Kuumba or creativity to do as much as we can to help those who have limited access to resources. And we will need Imani or faith to believe with all our heart that this pandemic will soon come to an end. I wish everyone the best of health, continue to be safe, and have a joyous Kwanzaa. Asante sana.
Thank you so much, Deshauna. Thank you so much for getting us started in this conversation. I want to introduce a couple of other folks who will join us as we talk. The first person I'd like to introduce is Olabisi Olakolade. She is accustomed to being called Mama Olabisi by her community due to her many years of work as an educator and organizer of independent African-centered movements and institutions. Her Pan-African worldview inspires her work on the international level on sustainability projects, primarily in Ghana, West Africa. Welcome, Mama Olabisi.
Thank you.
I'd also like to introduce Alieu and Nyassi, who has a wide variety of credentials, and I'm just going to say a few here. He is the System Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at St. Elizabeth Healthcare System in Northern Kentucky. He leads and supports the healthcare system's strategic workforce inclusion efforts and development of behaviors that embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion to ensure every associate and patient, regardless of ethnic, cultural, national, or socioeconomic background, receives equitable treatment and healthcare services. He has over 15 years of experience as a diversity and inclusion HR leader for various healthcare systems in the United States. He is also born and raised in the Gambia, West Africa. He has supported various communities in Africa to gain access to primary healthcare services, education for girls, building clean water systems through partnerships with international organizations and faith groups. And he is married with 2 daughters, 23 and 19, and a son. He serves on various boards, both in the US and in Africa. They're friends you've never met. Welcome, Alieu.
Thank you.
Shon Houston is a photographer, a spoken word artist, a writer, an all-around creative being. He is a member and collaborator in the Heart House of Healing Arts. It's an intentional community space for co-working and collaborative wellness sessions with healing circles and restorative storytelling pilot program. We also have Professor Taylor Curtis. She is the Director of African American Studies and a psychology professor at St. Clair Community College. She's also in the community known as Mykal. She's an artist in the band Frequency, and she's passionate about empowerment. And Zackary. She is the College Credit Plus Student Success Coordinator in Jefferson Township. An amazing, passionate woman, has a great passion for youth and developing youth. Her interests are in youth empowerment, women's empowerment, teaching and mentoring, dance, art, and expression. And last but not least, Umvikeli G. Scott Jones, my husband to my right. He is a teacher at Wagaman Middle School, Thurgood High School. He also teaches at Central State, where on all those places he teaches music. He's also a musician and artist in the area. So the question that I want to start off with in thinking about how the pandemic, and if it's okay for our faces to all be kind of equally distributed, yeah, great. What I'm hoping is that we'll just have a conversation together. So I'll put a question out there, but you can talk to each other. You can, speak directly to the audience, whatever is most comfortable. In thinking about Ujima and COVID, my opening question is, what are some opportunities that we need to seize? Or what are some areas of weakness that have been revealed over these last many months that we've been dealing with the pandemic?
Well, I'd like to jump in and say thank you, Deshauna, for your presentation, because I think you pinpointed some of the weaknesses that we had in our response, which is that individualistic mentality. This idea that, I'm worried about how I'm affected, not necessarily worried about the impact on everyone around me. And we saw a lot of people resisting the idea of shutting down or being at home or quarantining, and that resistance kind of seemed to wear down on the leadership, that kind of influence that we're going to make suggestions rather than kind of cracking down and saying we want to solidify the plan to stay safe.
And I would say that thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this good, well-meaning conversation about something that actually impacts. I think that there's nobody in this room who is not impacted directly or indirectly. I think that we have two things going on. When you lack leadership and you don't have a voice, you either lose everything or you get everything. And I think what we have been doing is we've lost everything. So impact on the Black and brown people coming from COVID, being born, raised in Africa and being in the United States, I was so scared about how COVID is going to impact Africa, where there's no structured healthcare. Amazingly, Africa has been able to manage the pandemic because of the approaches that they shut down the air. And sometimes when we sit at America or in the West and we say, wow, there are so many dictators in Africa, and we have a democracy in America. But with those dictators, the voice becomes the voice for everybody. And when the government says, shut down, everybody wear masks. Here, because of our democracy, the underprivileged have none, are the people that have the less stand for themselves. And I think that's the thing that we have in the impact and work that I do to bring access to the most vulnerable communities. That is our community. I think I'm not saying, for example, if we think about, let's take, and for example, 14% of the population is African American, but 40% of COVID deaths are African American. Think about it.
I have a perspective on that, and I think that Taylor was thinking very progressively in stating that we have an issue of individualism. And that individualism is what is really pushed in our culture. You know, it's revealed by the very idea that wearing a mask is considered by people to be taking away their personal freedom, meaning that what they want to do or the whims that they have are more important than the health of other people or even their own health. Individualism is somewhat antithetical to our African traditional culture. So when we look at something like the Nguzo Saba, that's encouraging us to work together, to see our community's problems collectively and to solve them together, to have Umoja, which is unity, and again, we're working together. Ujima, collective economics, we're sharing what we have, we're supporting our businesses. It all points to the opposite of individuality. Individuality has become almost an illness, you know, on its own in this country now. That we are willing to disregard everybody. And, you know, the sad part about that is it has very devastating and tragic results. The people who are refusing to wear masks, follow any type of protocols, are getting sick. The people who are leading them in doing this are part of the capitalist system that we're living under. And that system promotes individuality. So these things were already here before COVID came, and COVID is just drawing a big red line under all of this disparity, oppression, lack of connection to culture, decentering that African people born in America and throughout the diaspora are suffering from.
Yeah, one of the things that I think, just to add, I mean, there's so much that's already been being said here, but to add to this individualism is, well, I'm so sorry, but basically when we're so focused on finances, like early on, at least in the state of Ohio, when we were shut down in so many different ways, people, and I know that happened, you know, nationwide in different ways, but at least there was some sense of a unified approach, or like we were working together. At the same time, one of the things that I've had to be honest, or just to kind of look at outside of our own safe bubble here at home, is the reality that economics are important, and for small business owners to completely shut down, you know, that can affect someone's ability to have income, which affects their health care, which affects their sanity, et cetera, et cetera. So it's all connected. And the thing about it is we you know, everything we do is so connected, but not having a unified approach, or even I don't want to get deep into governmental things here, but one of the things I've been thinking about is that there's a need for a larger government or a larger governing body when the people don't do for each other, or when those who have aren't doing for those who don't. So if we all worked together and actually did collaborate and did support each other, we wouldn't need, you know, if we did shut down and there was actually a system already in place in our culture for giving to those who are in need, or for doing for those. The money is there, the wealth is there, the resources are there. There's no need for poverty. And we already know this, those of us in this panel, that there's no need for poverty or hunger and things in general already. But then this pandemic, when we start to see people coming out and getting resources and food and things for elders, or for people in their community, or for family members, we can see some of the unity. And that's one of the things that some people were talking about, is that even though we see how divided our country is, we do see how unified we are. But the problem is, I think this is one of the things with the leadership we have, not just White House leadership, but just in general, when we're so fear-based, it's so focused on fear. I'm not talking about being focused on, I'm not saying fear instead of good common sense. There's a big difference. or when our culture is so focused right now on fear, 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 then we're doing even less for each other. We're focused so much, like Mama Olabisi was saying about that individualism. I have to do for me, because if I don't do for me, I'm not going to make it. But the reality is, if I don't do for you, I'm not going to make it, and our children aren't going to make it. And so, but that's our bigger problem within all this. It just goes back to our culture we had beforehand, and then quite possibly, if it's just went away, you know, if it will, the post-COVID culture, if we're not careful and we don't make deliberate actions, we're going to be right back in the same boat of this individualism, which got us and is keeping us where we are right now.
Well, many people are saying that they want to go back to normal, but I personally do not want to go back to normal. This has been a catastrophic and drastic impact. And whenever catastrophic and, you know, great impacts occur, that's the time to rethink. That's the time to figure out, well, was the system that we had before a good system in the first place? Since COVID, we've had major disruptions in the educational system. Now, students are failing, okay? And it's not just Black students, but you know that if any white students are failing, you know that a lot of Black students are failing.
I would like to, excuse me, did I interrupt you?
You did.
I apologize.
Let me finish. I'll finish my point. And so I would like to go back to an educational system that was better than the one that was disrupted by COVID. I would like to see an educational system that has more involvement of parents in the educational system. I would like to see more support for homeschooling. Homeschooling right now is getting a bad name because it was just dumped on people. You know, homeschooling is a decision that you make in order to make sure that, you know, the students you're concerned about are getting a good education, able to be protected from some of the problems that exist in the school system. So right now, the distance learning, the back and forth, the constant interruptions, the missing long periods of time, having parents who, you know, are frustrated. So even the concept of supervising my child while they're on the computer is very difficult. The children are not happy because their social life has just been completely and totally trashed. So I encourage us to rethink the educational system because it wasn't serving our children before. They always were talking about the achievement gap, which was just the opportunity gap. We need to focus on being in charge of our children's education and closing that opportunity gap, coming together to make sure that they have all the opportunities that they should have, that they deserve, and that they need in order to be successful. I don't want to go back to how it was before. Let's go forward from COVID with something better than what we had before.
And I want to come in quickly here. I think I totally agree with what has been said.
Absolutely.
But I also think that for me, normal is we talk about the concept of Ubuntu. I am because we are, right? I cannot be successful if my community is left behind. Right. I cannot pride myself. So I go back to the way I was raised, that no matter how much wealth you have, wealth is not going to bury you, but it's going to bury you. So if you think that your wealth is what is going to make you feel better than people, wait till the day you are sick. The person that you never want to look at, the person that's going to care for you, right? So it's important for us to think about that I can never stand where I am if I don't have people around me. I can never be rich if I don't care with you, right? But again, I think we also have to come back when you talk about responsibility, because I think one of the things that have left us behind, education, we left our kids alone.
Mm.
We have not
Yeah.
been involved in the education system, in the education process. I
Yes.
have been raising kids. I remember this when I go to teachers meetings. I represent parents that I don't even know, because the kid is there and the parent didn't. So you cannot blame the system if we are not fully involved in it.
I would love to invite Zequoia into this part of the conversation because she does so much work, like one-on-one on the ground with young people and students. If you have some thoughts about some of what you've been hearing related to what students are going through during this time and maybe what we need to be doing to help them.
Yes, definitely. It's been trial and error. I mean, it's still, trying to figure out different things. A lot of the students, they dealing with more than just actually the difficulties with trying to their coursework online, but also, their home environment, and really trying to figure out how we can support the kids at home, support the parents, because the parents are frustrated, you know what I mean? They're trying to support the kids they can. So this has definitely exposed a lot more issues than even this, just really trying to that gap. It's concerning for me, trying to hold the hands of not only the students, but I'm finding myself, in my coworkers, trying to, hold the hands of the parents and the families as well. And that's something that, I think that wasn't considered for, working in education, our first, focus, as a student and the student success. But in this, in this situation, it's way more bigger than it. And I think that's something that we need to realize as well. And that's where the community comes in, really trying to figure out kids out that, eating, don't have a quiet space to do their work. Parents are having to work and students are having to babysit their younger siblings and what have you. These are all issues that we're dealing with. And so I think it is very important that, we figure out how to bridge this gap, because this is very important to do. I think that we need to take this serious, because these kids are suffering. I can speak for them, these parents are suffering.
Yeah.
I want to jump in there because Zackary and I have worked closely together just to try to accommodate some of the students that we share, because it's even as down to students not even having somewhere to live. And I don't think people really think about what that looks like for a high school student, or for a college student, or for a high school student that feels like they have to go and work in a pandemic during school hours because that's just what's needed for the household over going to school at that time. I think that we recognize the stress that it puts on the parents when we look at the perspective of having to be at home, or trying to figure out how are your children going to be taken care of while you're trying to work, and be at school at home and still get their lesson and be diligent enough to be able to go through the work online rather than in person. And then we're not even considering those who have additional equity issues. You know, I've had students who have mental health disorders who have been severely impacted due to the pandemic, due to isolation, due to the stress, due to anxiety. I've had students who have extreme mental health issues that have been exasperated by just the experience and the trauma, not to mention that they're watching people that they love die from this virus or be infected by this virus and then impacted in a different way. My own family has been impacted by the virus. Just looking at their households, you know, watching individuals go to work after their 10-day quarantine that's been ordered by the CDC, only to find out that the virus hit them even worse after already being exposed to other people. And now they have to go home again, and now they're losing their job because you're just missing too many days of work. But of course, they're not going to say because you have a virus, but they're still going to lose their job because that's just how the system works. And like it was said before, Ubuntu is not the mentality that we had, nor has it been really the mentality that we've built within our community. When we're in the midst of tragedy, like the tornadoes that took place last year, we saw the community come together. We saw them care about one another. We saw them take care of one another. We saw them provide for one another in ways that we've never really seen the community come together before. And it's like in a moment, it's forgotten. And that sense of community and that needing one another for us to be able to move forward, we all need to move forward. That whole mentality kind of just drifted away. And I think, like it was said before earlier, there is no such thing as going back to normal. There will never be another normal. Our birthday party, our birthday celebration, we may be able to gather face to face, but who's blowing out candles? It's going to be different moving forward. And we have to embrace that because capitalism has caused us to embrace overworking, not spending time with family, not taking care of self, not doing the self-care, not taking care of mental health. We have been used to these things because of the need to make money, and work, so that we can survive. Because again, as mentioned before, we are at a disadvantage economically, and some of us have disparities where we don't have any other choice, or we don't feel like we have any other choice. And this is the opportunity that we have to reset. This is the opportunity that we have to start embracing one another in a different way so that we can transition and make the changes that our community needs to have.
I think that if we shift our focus a little bit, because we're feeling the pain of this pandemic, and I'm hearing that, and I'm very grateful for the way that everybody is really expressing. I want us to look at the realities of this is a major test. This is a major challenge. So that means it's time for us to rise. It's time for us to stop talking about we're going to take care of our self-care and manage our immune systems, because that's really, at the end of the day, all we have to depend on right now is our own immune system. And those immune systems need to be built up with strength. I know it can be done. I am 70 years old. I'm not taking any medications. I'm just being a vegetarian, exercising, getting rest, and avoiding a lot of stress. And that last one is the hardest one. But the results are very beneficial. Sometimes we're so depressed that we don't want to manage what we're eating, even the amount of what we're eating or the quality of what we're eating. And we make excuses and we just continue to eat the bad diet that's killing us and causing and I know you all have heard comorbidity a million times since March. And that's a direct issue impacting us as African people. What is comorbidity? That's us not taking care of ourselves. That's us housing in our bodies a lot of chronic illnesses, high blood pressure, diabetes. Most people I know my age It's not unusual for them to be taking 7 or 8 medications. 7 or 8 medications. When living a healthy lifestyle in our traditional, I do African dance, keep moving, walking, keep a positive attitude, meditate, center, the self-care, take baths. That is important to health. Some people say buying good food is too expensive. It's too expensive to go to the doctor. It's too expensive to be diabetic. Too expensive to have high blood pressure, osteoporosis, coming out. No, that's what's expensive. So let's take care of ourselves, people. Let's, live by some of our traditional values of good health. Find out what they are. The other thing is serving. Because we throw up our hands, we're frustrated, but serving is the key to gratefulness, to happiness, to joy, and, not worrying about stress. Just do what we can, even if it's a small thing. If we can't do the big thing, do the small thing. If we wait to do the big thing, we may wind up doing nothing. The simple things have to become important. Now, the pandemic could be a time that we're becoming more creative, a time that we are figuring out how to be less dependent, a time that we can figure out how to support each other. There's going to be some very rough times ahead. 2021 is not going to be a picnic. Even with the vaccine, we have many issues, the seeds of which have already been planted. So we got to get ourselves ready. It's not a point of hoarding, but I think it's a good idea to maybe store some healthy food in the home. Something like dried beans. You can cook them or you can sprout them. They're going to be food either way. Try to keep the family together. That's one thing that really reduces stress, when the family spends time together and you're just doing things because you're together. You're just enjoying each other, enjoying your children. That's why some parents are real frustrated right now, because they have their children more time than they've ever had them before, and they don't even know how to talk to them because they can't even get them off the tablet. Screen time has to be controlled. I realize that we're now pivoting onto the internet. We don't have a choice about that. We're having our Kwanzaa on the internet. But what I'm saying is that when it comes to our children, we got to limit them. We got to say, this is your formula. You got 1 hour of screen time. Then I want you to have 1 hour of human interaction with me or whatever humans you can interact with under the quarantine. And you need to have another equal unit of time in nature. If we don't do this for our children, and if we don't apply a discipline to doing it, they're going to be going through the dehumanization process that you can all study. Because right now there's a lot of studies showing how the internet is just hooking us and addicting us and exploiting us and manipulating us, and most especially our children. They have now emoji dysmorphia, where young girls want to get operations so that their face looks more like their app makes them look on their computer. So we have to just take some steps to step out of the way that we've been doing things. We have to move forward, looking towards being better human beings. And I'm going to stop here so other people can talk.
I think the large. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Shon.
I think another large issue to deal with that I've personally been dealing with is the depression that comes from us being at home, us not seeing our families in that way. I'm not as far from my mother as I used to be, but for her, her depression has been significant and severe. So both of us have actually started going to see a therapist. So I think that a large portion of what we should start addressing is the mental health disparities within the African American community. Um, and I don't know what kind of solutions we can offer or how we can continue to build on all these efforts that's being said. Because we have students who, the simplest thing of having access to the internet or having the equipment necessary to obtain the lessons. These little things all need to be addressed because each person, each family is suffering in some kind of way. Um, so, what are your thoughts on addressing the mental disparities that we have within our communities?
I think that that's a very important point you just made. I think the biggest challenges that we have, and I think when we talk about responsibility, we have to ask ourselves, what have you done during the past month to reach out to the person in the next house or in the next apartment, right? That by itself can help support our mental health well-being, because people are lonely at home. And then when something happens, you're the first to say, he or she was a good man. And last week I saw it, but I didn't know he was like that. But you didn't take the time to even knock at the door. How are you? Just how are you by itself can make somebody feel really good that I am a human being. I am worth something for somebody to even come and check on me. So I think that is what is lacking in our society. When we talk about a society of individualism, we know our neighbor has 3 children in different grades. They have to be virtual learning now. The person cannot afford to buy 3 laptops at the same time and even have to do it. But maybe if you check on them, you know an agency that is providing the service, right? And you could refer them to that agency. You never know. But because of our individuality, individual mindset, I think that is what is impacting the mental health in our community. And I think that we have very limited resources, right? And then even for us that have the ability, we are not even reaching out to our neighbors that we can help. Because I think no matter how much you think you're in bad state, there is somebody who you are better off, who you can bring along with you. And I think the first act we have to do in addressing mental health in our community is by us knowing that I am not if my community is not, and I am responsible for my community as they're responsible. So it's important for me to check on them. So if I see something wrong, if I cannot help, I can call help.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I think a lot of times we have to acknowledge, what we're experiencing. And I think for a lot of people, it's difficult to acknowledge how you're feeling and what you are experiencing. And depression might look like, I didn't feel like cleaning my house this week, and I just don't feel like doing it at all. Or depression might look like, I just don't feel like doing that project or doing all these things. Yeah. And my students were identifying that they were feeling these things and said, well, what can I do to be motivated? And one of the things is just acknowledging. When you start to acknowledge how you're feeling and acknowledge your need and acknowledge your community's need, that awareness of self and that awareness of others, that is the first step. And then you do something about it. And that may be with affirming yourself and affirming one another to let yourself and others know that you believe and have that faith in who you are and who you are supposed to be, that you have that need, that purpose of where you want to be and who you want to be, and recognizing that you're not in that right now. And that's okay. It's okay to just have gotten up today. It's okay to have just gotten through the shower today. That is a win. That is a step. And every step we take leads to taking steps among the community. And there are places and people that are offering free counseling, free therapy sessions. There are places that have therapy on a sliding scale. There are places that offer different empowerment and self-care opportunities. I started hosting a weekly self-care session just because I felt like we need something, whether that's, human interaction through a screen, if that's the only way we can, or through just going out and earthing and feeling the ground, putting your feet on the ground and communing with nature and letting yourself feel that, or grounding, where you're taking the time to get close to yourself and ground yourself and center yourself. Meditation. There are so many different things we could be doing to take care of ourselves and take care of one another. Even if it's, hey, I want to get on Zoom and do yoga with you. We're going to turn on a video because I don't know anything about yoga, and we're just going to do it together. Those things are possible. And if we are doing those things with one another and doing these things for ourselves, we can see a change in how this is impacting us, to where we can move and shift to being productive in the time that we have. We always say we don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time. I'm too busy. I don't have time. Well, now we have the time. This is the time to turn that energy and put it into something that is going to help you grow. And growth is uncomfortable. So it's okay to be uncomfortable in this time. But you could be growing within yourself. And that starts with a decision that you want to be aware of how you feel, and you want to change how you feel. You want to turn that energy into something productive. And that can be done in this time, not just individually, but through our community.
Agreed.
Yes.
Yes. We are very.
The internet, one thing I really loved about what she said was the fact that the internet is ubiquitous. We're not going to get away from it. There's no way around it. So what we have to do is figure out how we can use it as the tool that it's supposed to be. And that focus on finding what's online that's positive, that's affirming, that's developmental, that's educational, that's inspirational, and avoiding everything else. I think that even if we're on social media, it's real popular to be really sarcastic and ironic, and what Alieu said about being kind to people is not corny, it's real. It's the way that we have to live. Somebody was talking about suicide hotlines, and the response was, well, stop being a jerk to people in person and online. Be kind. Think about what we say before it comes out of our mouth, how it's going to affect the person that we're talking to. But I found a lot of use. I'm taking my yoga class online right now, Tiffany Brown, and I'm in a sister circle with Achille and some more people. And there are a lot of ways. And I noticed that even when I got on the call today, I was so happy. And I'm looking at all of your beautiful faces, and everything you're saying is just radiating all this positive energy. I'm good. I'm going to be good, for a while after this call. So, how we do this can have a lot to do with our healing also. I just want to say thank you. Thank you.
And I think I agree with that. I think there's one thing that I always say to people when I speak to people and when I interact with people. There's something that scares me about my life. It's not what people say to me. It scares me most comes out of my mouth, just like Manuel. What comes out of my mouth? Because you say something, people are like, and then you say, I didn't say that. You have no control to find the meaning of what came out of your mouth. Yeah. The person you said it, what you have control over is how you manage yourself, how you respond to what you. Yeah. But you don't have no control over how people respond to what you say. So it's important for all of us to know what you say to other people is very, very important. It's something that you be very mindful. If we have something in our minds that should go to jail forever, it's not common. It can break relations. It can bring down a building and it has no problem. Right? So we are not mindful of that. And we think that we are macho people, that you are stronger if you could turn people upside down. That is not what community means. Community means when you are stronger when you're able to lift people with that. Because you don't know if the person that you downgrading, the child that you didn't even pay attention to, could be your next teacher, could be your professor, the professor of your kid, could be the person that is going to be the person that is actually going to bring you next meal. You don't know that. So it's important that you don't, just like Jessica, don't look down on people, on anyone, unless you are helping them. Yeah. That's very important. But we like to do that. We like to look down on people because they don't drive the car you have, they don't live in a house that you have, they don't have the shoes you got on. Remember, on the day you're going to answer to God, you're going to be alone. Those clothes, somebody will wear them. That car, somebody's going to drive it. That house, other people are going to live in it. Right? But it's important for you to understand that my responsibility is for my brother, my sister. And when I talk about my brother, my sister, is the person that's next to you.
Thank you so much, Alieu. I want to ask, is there anyone who has a last brief comment that they'd like to make?
I do.
Especially those who didn't, after Mama Olabisi, those who maybe didn't get to say anything, if there are some last comments that you want to leave us with.
Okay, let me be quick. For 40 years, I've worked in independent African-centered education, operating a Shule. Shule is the Swahili word for school, in the form of a homeschool cooperative, working in a cooperative with parents and teachers and people in our community. And in that process, we have literally produced hundreds of students, many of which were discarded by the school system, said that they wouldn't learn, they couldn't achieve, they're too far behind, they may have mental challenges. So we, in Shule Adetunde, we worked with everybody, whether they had autism or whatever issue they had. Our view of them was they have something to contribute. Let's find what that is. Let's work on that. Maybe it wouldn't be in an independent school. Maybe it would be in a Saturday school. But we need some formal way of feeding into our children. I will say that 40 years of doing this, now I'm looking at attorneys, doctors, architects, midwives, doulas, massage therapists, musicians, dancers, at the top levels in the best dance companies in the country. And not only am I looking at a high level of achievement among the students from our Shule, but I'm also looking at they're not just for themselves. You know, one of the sisters who's a doctor has a whole program to try to explain why it's important to breastfeed. Because among African women, African born in the United States, we have a very low level of breastfeeding. And that's a very important thing for the nurturance of our babies and to avoid the infant mortality that we're suffering from. So I just wanted to say that I feel very positive about what we can do, because I've already been doing this, for 40 years. And I know that we can do more for our children educationally than what we're doing right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just had a few reflections. First off, I'm giving thanks for all of you and everything I've learned just listening to you all today. But I want to give thanks because the pandemic in many ways slowed me down. Like Mama said, she said, we don't want to go back to normal. And my family is closer because of the pandemic. It sounds crazy sometimes, but my children are doing well in school. And I'm a natural teacher, so the teaching part doesn't bother me at all. But, I'm praying for our sisters and brothers who have to do this, who don't feel comfortable with it. I know we're coming out of this. 2021 is next weekend, and it's not an automatic reset, but we're coming out of this. We've been a little slow about it, but my hope is that we take everything we've learned over the past 9 months and we make lasting changes to not only our lifestyles, but our communities, ourselves. I'm looking forward to that. I think I'm still hopeful that positive things are coming. And so that's all I had. Thank you so much.
Ashe.
Thank you.
Ashe.
I want to offer.
Well, I just want.
I'm sorry. I just want to offer real quick what I've learned over this time period.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
From my days teaching adults with mental disabilities to being a photographer to helping create this intentional space we have here at the Heart on Salem, there is so much need now to be intentional. We see that all these systems are crumbling and have failed us because they weren't systems created with much intention. These education systems, the working spaces, none of this was done with the intention of helping us heal, helping uplift us, or any kind of sense of building community. And that's what we're seeing is successful in this space now with this pandemic, is that we are putting more intentionality into each other, offering each other services, offering each other lessons and care and examples of wellness. And so interesting about this panel of people that I'm witnessing, and I have to use the word witnessing because that word has been something I've reflected on over the last few months, is how to properly witness someone, which involves a lot of intention on my part and recognizing you all as people that are doing this work with intention to heal us. So I want to thank you for allowing me to be on this panel with you. And I want to offer the notion of putting more intention into the spaces we're in, for all those that are listening to us and for each other.
Ashe. Absolutely. Ashe. Ashe. This has been a very uplifting experience for me. I'm on 10 right now. I'm like, hey, when we start back school, I want to, work with these parents, talk to other parents. Hey, I'm a help you. I mean, let's have a group Zoom meet or Google meet, and let's sit our kids down. As your child in fourth grade is in the fourth grade, let's meet. Let's collectively come together, because I'm feeling this latter situation, just really trying to attack it. Like I'm uplifted. I just want to thank you all, really listening to you guys. Like, this is me. My ideas are going crazy. Taylor knows I'm going to call her after this, and we're going to be trying to figure out how, we can work with our kids. Like, this has been an amazing experience. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for all. Like, this is amazing. Like, I want to see this. Let's start separating. Let's start really coming as a group, because as uplifting as this has been for me, like if parents can get there and from different, we'll see, they're just dealing with the kids that they're used to, right? And say, I'm at Jefferson, but hey, you're at West Carrollton. What are you doing there? What are your struggles? Let's share our struggles. Let's try to work together. Let's make a bigger, platform. Let's really come together. I'm really excited about this, guys. This conversation has energized me. Because we battle as well as educators to say, to get up and show up to your computer wherever you are in your household and then provide motivation for us, we have to be motivated as well, and that's a battle. That's a daily struggle for myself. I know personally, just like, I got to get up, but I'm still in my house. So I never leave work. I'm here. You know what I mean? I'm at home. So when I'm in a building, it used to be that release to say, hey, see you guys tomorrow. And I'm just walking out the door of my car and going home. It separated everything. And now everything's all together. But I'm really excited, guys. I have a new mind state right now. So thank you for this.
Thank you, Zequoia. You're so passionate. I'm so glad that you came to be part of the panel. I'm thankful to each and every one of you. I've heard the words today, decision, intention. We've talked about moving away from the individual, but we are talking about each of us does need to do something. And we need to decide what is that something. And so I'm really on fire with what you were saying, Zequoia. But not for individual benefit, but for the benefit of our families, our community, of our world. Very grateful to the Dayton Africana Elders Council, to the elders, the nation builders, the warriors who have put a lot of thought, energy, and fire into bringing together this virtual experience. We're grateful to the sponsors who have also helped to put together this experience, and really grateful to the audience. I don't know if you've been paying attention to the comments, but there have been some great comments about things we need to really think about. Hey, what about communities that don't have sidewalks? We're saying go out and exercise and touch the earth, but you're surrounded by concrete and you don't have sidewalks. Or we're looking at, I think it was Don Martin's comment, I don't know where it is, but it was something about, not just, this isn't a thing that we're going to get fixed this year. We're looking at issues that have been across generations. So we're taking steps in the right direction. I feel like you all have brought up some foundational things that we all can be thinking about and moving on as we go into this new year. So with all of that being said, thank you. And we'd like to end with 7 Harambes. For those in the audience who may not know what Harambe means, it means let's pull together. And so some places they do 1 Harambe for each day, but here in Dayton, we choose to end with 7 Harambes at the end of each day. So panelists and folks at home, even though we can't see you, we're gonna close out.
Yeah, actually, right before I leave the Harambes, I want to, even though I'm sitting in the room with her, acknowledge and thank you, Furaha, for putting all this together. She's done it. You all don't know the countless hours she's put into organizing.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Okay,
before we close with the Harambes, I just wanted to say one last thing. Although we didn't touch on it deeply today, we do recognize that we are still dealing with a racial pandemic as well. And we recognize that we are fighting racism just as much as we are fighting this virus, and that this virus and racism are hand in hand at the disparities that we see in the Black community. And so it is our responsibility to collectively continue the work in those areas as well, by supporting our Black-owned businesses, by making intentional decisions to talk about the issues and to produce change, effective change in shifting our culture. That is part of our collective responsibility. That coming together, we saw when 114 countries came together to protest over the lives of the George Floyds and Breonna Taylors and Elijah McClain's and the many others who have been murdered senselessly. And what we have to do is continue that. That same energy that we had in those protests needs to be in how we take care of our community, in how we fight this racism together. And so I want to thank all of you for being a part of the change of the culture, because this is where it starts for some people.
All right, Ashe.
Ashe.
So everybody, what we'll do is we'll raise our hand up. You can't really see my hand if I go too high. You can't. So we'll come down and say Harambe.
Ashe.
And we're going to hold as we come down. So 1, 2, 3. Harambe. Harambe.
Love you guys. Love
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for tuning in to another Blaqsage production. Please like this video, share it with friends, family, and associates. Drop a comment in the section below and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you once again.